Today on the show, I have the pleasure of chatting with Rachel Gainsborough. Rachel was born in Haiti and then migrated to the United States, where she was raised in Miami, Florida. Through a lot of hard work, Rachel became a doctor, but was unfortunately left with over $500,000 in student loans. So she decided to work hard to pay off those loans, and along the way, she discovered Airbnb investing. And it became a complete game changer for her because she was able to make 15 times the amount on a short-term rental compared to that of a long-term rental. Now, she is a healthcare professional by day and a real estate investor by night. She's the owner and manager of 18 luxury short-term rentals with a lucrative cash-flowing rental portfolio. She's a mum, a wife, and to top it all off, she's actually a real estate coach. So I'm really pumped and excited to share her incredible knowledge with you today. But enough out of me. Let's get her out here. G'day, Rachel. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hey, Reed. I am doing so good. I cannot tell you how honored I am to be here with you today. I just thank you for putting all the energy and effort and putting in years and years and getting this podcast out to the community, because it's information that we all need to hear. I know as a W-2 worker, I always look for inspiration and motivation from those podcasts. And so I thank you for being amongst the top ones.
Hey, I can only do my best, right? You know, just keep grinding, and it will eventually get there. But to start the show, I like to ask all my guests the same question: rewind the clock and tell me how you made your first ever dollar as a kid.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know what? I came from Haiti, like you mentioned a little bit earlier, and my mom, she made it a point that she didn't really want me working because the stigma was once you start working, you start making a little bit of money as a kid, you don't really go all in on your education. So she really wanted me to focus on education and not get pigeonholed into being like a seamstress or something like that, which is what a lot of, those who are my age would get pigeonholed into. But when I was 17, I got my first part-time job, and I was a telemarketer, Reed. So I would call people and try to sell them this insurance product in a box. I lasted 2 days. I cried and walked home. I got fired. I was so bad at it.
I know a lot of people who've been fired from telemarketing jobs. It sounds like the worst, right? There's all this promise of making these commissions, and you can do really, really well, and it sounds great, particularly as like a student or a uni student or something like that. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, oh God, I got to sit and talk to so many people in a call center. That sounds terrible. So
oh yeah, and
awesome.
They hang up on you. They were like, no, if they would talk, that's one thing, but they would just hang up. They would be angry. I was like, I can't handle this.
But I mentioned in the intro, you have a grind or a knack for grinding and a hard work ethic because you became a doctor. Walk us through that. You're an immigrant. Parents are immigrants. Clearly, I've had a lot of immigrants on this show. I'm an immigrant myself. I obviously came here a lot older, but there's that stigma, what you said earlier, of like, you got to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. Yes. So was that a big defining sort of elephant in the room as you're growing up, going through education and starting to flap your own wings?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was education and faith. It was a constant reminder, and it was the norm. There were only two careers. There was a doctor, there was nurse. If you want to go the reading and writing route, there's attorneys, but there's not much more, So real estate investing was never on the table. We never had conversations about investing in anything, really. It was, you're going to punch a clock, and walk into work every day and generate revenue by punching a clock. And it depends on how far you go in school, what type of clock that would be. So it was expected of us to excel. And so I went the doctor route. I wanted to do healthcare, specifically pharmacist. And I really, really loved it. But the student loans debt was so burdensome. And eventually, between my husband and I, we really grinded it out. Between the both of us, at one point, we had 5 jobs actually between the two of us.
Wow.
Just going from hospital to hospital and just working. And so that's when I realized that is not sustainable. I can't do this till I'm 65 years old, And so when I read Warren Buffett's comment, he has a quote: if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die.
Mm-hmm.
And that really struck a chord. And when we realized like we had to do something, we wanted to get rid of the debt, but afterwards, what are the next step? Are we going to rely on pensions and Social Security, or are we going to, create a life that we want and do some of the things that we want? And that came through real estate investing for sure.
And tell me, just paying off $500,000 in student loans, like that is, as a non-American myself, like I went to uni in Australia where we have HECS debt, a higher education, something loan. I can't remember what it is, but like you always hear about the multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars of debts that that Americans take under. But $500,000, that's a lot to be burdened with coming straight out of uni. Like, how long did it take you to pay that off?
Yeah, that's a great question. So between my husband and I, we actually, thankfully, within a year or two, we really started to generate some good revenue and start to take on that debt. The biggest mistake that I made initially is coming from, a household with not a lot of, finances. So we couldn't really talk a lot about financial literacy. There were no finances really. It was small. And then graduating and, being a student, not a lot of finances there. As soon as I completed school and we graduated, I thought, wow, the world is my oyster. That was, the thought process. So the first thing I did read was what any intelligent, responsible human being would do. I went and got a big car. I got a big house. I put the kids in front. I did it so wrong. And it's not even funny, So it was a learning curve. I quickly realized that the revenue you expect to generate, and you need to take out taxes, you need to take out Social Security, FICA, all of those things. And once you've taken those things out, what do you have left? Is it enough to live, a decent life and really get those student loans paid off? And it wasn't. Reed, it wasn't. We were going through a tough time. It was around 2008. There were a couple of employment issues and crashes, and it took my husband a moment to get his job going. And so when we really sat down, we looked at the numbers, and he's more conservative with the numbers than I am. He was just very, very stressed. And I knew at that moment, if I didn't do something drastic, our marriage would be in jeopardy. Our family would be in jeopardy. So we sold everything, Reed. We sold the car. We sold the house. We moved down from a 6-bedroom gigantic house for three of us down to a 3-bedroom apartment. The square foot from almost 6,000 square feet down to 1,300 square feet. And then we took every dime that came above our basic means and we paid off the student loans. And we were able to get rid of it in about 2.5, 3 years, which is really incredible compared to, most people, will hold on to it for 10, 20 years.
Yeah, no, that it is incredible. And it's funny that you say that you came out with the idea that you thought you had to have the big car, the big house, keeping up with the Joneses. It's such it's a byproduct of wanting to have everything and thinking that you're wealthy, but actually you're not, if that makes sense. Like you think because you're driving around in a big car that you're better off. Well, there's a lot of people who drive around in cars that they can't afford, right? Yeah. So having and that goes back to not understanding being financially literate. You just think you want to, what society tells you to consume. But at the end of the day, you can still be a doctor earning incredible money, but you might be living paycheck to paycheck because you got to support the $6,000 house. You got to support the 2 bloody BMWs. You got to get the kids in the best school. And it's not about like living within your means in order to build up the nest egg to then go out and invest and have, true financial freedom. So talk to me about how you stumbled across the real estate investing piece, and because you mentioned 2008, so it's obviously quite a long time ago. Was it recently that you came across, the discovery of real estate investing and wanting to be more financial literate and put your money to work?
Yeah. So around, I want to say 2018 or so, we started to really study it. And so again, listening to podcasts like yours and Bigger Pockets and really trying to get a feel of what it means to be an investor, what it means to generate revenue outside of the W-2. And so I binge consumed them and I started to learn. And in 2019, we invested in our very first property. It was a single family home. Initially, we thought to ourselves, okay, let's start off, we had the frugality, we'd bitten the frugality bug. So we tried to go into something that was extremely frugal. But when we looked at the time capital, you have to weigh it out, right? The time capital, the time commitment. Am I better served managing a project, a whole renovation, or am I better served doing a wholesaling strategy? Or am I better served clocking into my 9 to 5, generating a good amount of revenue and, supplying that revenue to purchase property? And so my highest and best use was to stay in my W-2 and to purchase property by leveraging my W-2 history and leveraging my W-2 income. And so that's why we went into that strategy. We actually looked at, what is the best way to get into investing to generate revenue? And we looked at cryptocurrency. We didn't understand any of it. We looked into all the different aspects of real estate. And the only one that really made sense to us based on the numbers perspective was Airbnb short-term rental.
Right. What you just said just there, I think I want to reiterate for so many people is that you didn't go off and shoot the golden goose, right? And so many people they go to a conference, they read a book, they hear a podcast, they just think, oh my God, I'm going to go and become a real estate investor tomorrow. But my story is, your story is, a lot of people I've interviewed on this podcast, it takes a decade or longer. It's going to take a long period of time to transition out of a W-2, particularly if you're earning 6 figures or more, like I'm sure you are being a doctor's salary, to replace that income. It's not going to happen overnight. And the fact is you kept to keep the roof over your head, the kids fed and the car full of petrol. So you can't go shoot that golden goose. And so many people don't talk about that balance of trying to manage the entrepreneurial side of them. They've got the bug. They want to go and buy all the deals, but they need to still keep the home base a home. Otherwise, you'll be on the street. I personally, did something similar. I actually was an engineer, and instead of going, I really wanted to be in the real estate game. Instead of going and quitting and trying to make with no money, I went and became a project manager for a real estate development company here in Los Angeles, continuing to learn the game whilst being paid the most amount in the corporate world. And that is just a lesson that I want to talk, just hit on before we continue, that everyone has their own story, but it's not about quitting the day job tomorrow. It's about using it as a tool to leverage you into more deals in the interim before you get to a point where you can say, I'm at a point where I can go off and quit the W-2. I actually don't need that anymore. So just wanted to drive that home there for a lot of people listening. So Airbnbs, tell me about the first one. Why is it so lucrative for you guys? I mentioned 15x in the introduction, right? What are you doing differently?
Yeah. So what we're doing differently is we're really focused on not just the property or a place to stay. We're focused on the experience. And so we provide a luxury accommodation. And the best part about modern luxury is that it doesn't have to break the bank. It's not the accumulation of things. I don't know if back where you're from, Reed, you used to watch Lifestyle of the Rich and Famous, where we would watch the show and the guy, he had the gold toilets and all. That's not luxury travel. Right. It's the individuals want to connect with nature. So our luxury is not the same as our parents and grandparents' luxury, right? And so how do we curate a stay where they can connect with each other, where they can reconnect with nature, as well as connect with have the convenience of the space, right? As it compared to other accommodations. And so for us, modern luxury has been such a great way to create that X factor in the properties. And again, when I studied it, I realized, wow, it really doesn't have to break the bank. It's in the communication, it's in the connections, and it's really in the convenience. If you can provide that unique space, unique stay for your guests, it can make all of the difference. And on the side, we also like to purchase bigger homes that are within our budget, because when you have the larger homes, you can then host a larger group, say, your family, your siblings, adult siblings with their spouses and their children, and then the grands and theirs, and so on and so forth. So I just counted about 4 or 5 paying adult units, that can split that nightly rate and still get a better deal than staying in a hotel. And you're thereby able to get those 15x returns because you're charging a higher rate, but you have multiple adults that are sharing a space. They're connecting with each other. You've created an experience for them to come together. And it's just been such a blessing and an honor to be able to curate that, because that's the way I travel. I travel with my siblings, and the fact that we're pet friendly also adds the cherry on top. So, yeah.
Talk to me about, you mentioned reconnecting with nature. So, and design. My wife's an interior designer. I'm a former structural engineer. I've worked a lot with architects, building stuff from scratch. Design is such people overlook it so easily and don't spend any money on it when they're planning out a project, but yet it's so cheap in the long run, because the return on investment, if you just think about it for 30 seconds and about how you want to curate a space, it makes all the difference and can achieve 15x. So what are you doing when you say connecting with nature, and how are you staging your homes in a way that creates that X factor to you, what you said earlier, to entice those people to come and think, this does feel like luxury?
I bring on the professionals for sure. So I have my ideas of things, but like you say, you and your wife, you all are the professionals. I bring them on, let them know what my vision is, and they will come behind me and kind of course correct, which I love. I'll put out these chairs, I'll put out the sitting and the outdoor, I'll do a fire pit. Like, no, too many chairs, we're going to break it up. And, they give me some great ideas because that's their area of expertise. And so outdoor living spaces, we can live in the outdoors too. It's not just indoor living space, but we want to transition that to the outdoor living spaces, especially when you have breathtaking views, when you're in an area where there's a really great, backyard. Let's create a space, and create some intrigue. Simple things, Reed, no joke, an inflatable movie screen, right? Something that you can add on as a rental and you're still generating more. I call that passive revenue in this property that you already have. So although our portfolio has grown, I tell my community and I teach, when I consult, how do I own and operate the fewest number of properties that generates the highest profitability? And that's how we squeeze the juice out of each property. Outdoor inflatable, movie theater rental. How fun would that be? So each area has their own personality, leveraging that and making the most out of that property, because we're not going out and getting 20 mass social properties. It's one at a time, and we can really pour into it and create the systems around it and really make it into something special. So that's really what's important to me. And that's what I really teach, because that's the X factor right there.
And I think it's attention to detail at the end of the day, right? You can, to your point, you can maximize out of 1, or then just do it mediocre over 10, So give me a sense of where these properties are, which states they're in. Are they on the beach? Are they in the mountains? Are they, in the desert? Like what, or do you have all of them?
Right. So right now it's a combination. We have mountain and lake houses in the Pocono region of Pennsylvania. We have a beach house that we're building right now on the Florida Panhandle. And we actually have homes in a suburban area in Georgia outside of the city where we stumbled upon a group of, or rather an avatar that we didn't expect at all. So we have the movie industry here. I know you're in California, but there's the Hollywood of the South, which is Georgia. And it's been interesting to host a lot of the cast and crew, but additionally, we're hosting what's called midterm rentals. And midterm rentals are those who are staying with us for 30 nights, whether it's cast and crew or of, a movie that's coming out. So they're staying 30 nights or more, 3 months, 6 month stays. But there's an entire demographic of those who are business travelers who are doing that as well for a number of reasons. as well as those who are displaced from their home due to an unfortunate disaster, where there's a natural disaster or a fallen tree. And those stays are actually paid for by the insurance companies. And those have been really, really just great guests and very lucrative stays as well, because the insurance pockets are deep.
Yeah.
I hate to put it that way, but it's the truth.
Yeah. Are you seeing any kickback or lag because you're in the space of travel, right? Besides the insurance stayers, are you seeing anything in terms of a pullback with this high inflationary market that people aren't going to go out and have that discretionary money to go and take the holiday with the family, and they might have to put that on pause this year and do it next year?
That is a great question. And I know a lot of people are seeing that, Reed, and I'm not going to just gloss over that. A lot of people are actually encountering some issues with a low occupancy rate and a lot of vacancy because they are in either a market that's not going to be traveled to, or they pigeonhole their properties in a way that they are in that middle tier. And so let me explain that. If you're not the top 5%, if you're not the top 10%, you're going to be competing with everyone. And not only are you competing with everyone, you're competing with bargain shoppers. I'm a bargain shopper. There's nothing wrong with that. I want a deal. But when you're the top tier, a lot of those folks are still traveling. A lot of those folks, they seem to not be impacted by the inflation. It's a conversation between you with a top tier property and these individuals with top tier finances for whatever reason, for better or for worse. That's just an observation that I'm making. However, if you succumb to have a meh property, then you're like everyone else. It's just a race to who can give me the cheapest deal. And that's what I'm going with. So I say stay in the blue ocean, get out of the red ocean where there's a feeding frenzy. You want to set yourself apart. What are you doing every single quarter to set yourself apart? And it could be small things, that really gives individuals who stay with you that extra nudge. We have a direct booking campaign. After a guest, stays with us and they leave, we collect their email and we reach out. We say, hey, it's been 6 months. Remember how much fun you had? Come on back. So you do want to take that extra step. It's not a set it and forget it. Mm-hmm. And when I say we, I mean my one virtual assistant that helps with that. I'm not going to take credit for it. Thank you, Christian. But, just so you can understand that it's figure outable, 4 or 5 emails a year, you're top of mind. Right. So it's not a spamming situation. It's just you're top of mind. And if you can name their kids, I really hope so-and-so enjoyed their birthday. And it's that time again, come and enjoy this, free ice cream coupon and stay with us. These are the things, that makes the difference. And this is what no one else is doing, I don't think. And so that's how you're going to stay top of mind.
I love that. And I was thinking as you're speaking, when you had all your multiple different properties, the Poconos, Atlanta, down in the Florida Panhandle, I was thinking to myself, I wonder if she, co-advertises other stays or spaces in your when someone's there. So if you're in the Poconos, there's a flyer for, hey, if you like this, we also own something down the road. And nearly you could create a and I'm such a geek when I geek out on this sort of stuff, like an ecosystem of, you nearly become a boutique hotel at that point, because you're offering certain flavors for certain times of the month. And you want rainforest, we've got rainforest. You want Poconos, your hills, we've got this. We've got beaches, we've also got desert. And you can start to create an ecosystem around that. Do you try and cross-promote other properties that you own?
We actually, so for the one that we have in Georgia, we have a lot of individuals who go to Florida. So we do cross-promote that one to the one that we're building in Florida. Hey, stay up to date on this. But yes, that is the ultimate goal. And that is what we're building on the back end of our site, to cross-promote using whether it's a hashtag or something like that, like you said, to almost keep the branding, specific to all of the properties. So yeah, for sure.
Quickly pivoting before we come to the end of the show, I'd love to just quickly touch on, medical professionals, right? We mentioned in the green room that you're still working, somewhat smaller, but you're still working a W-2. Yeah. Are you having conversations with other medical professionals, high income earners, that want to shelter taxes or anything like that, and get involved in real estate to maybe even to potentially you may raise money from them for your own deals?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so since, like you said, I am looking to transition, I'm now consulting. And so not having the robust W-2, anymore, I am looking at ways to pivot to start to raise capital for upcoming deals. Right now, we're actually finishing up a construction. But after that, I'll be looking around like, okay, how do I leverage, my tools, my skill set, my resources, my team, my systems, my processes to, create an offer for other medical professionals who want to get into the game and not necessarily want to, do any of the heavy lifting. It is medicine is an intense, demanding job. And so I have figured out a way to work on my short-term rental business in less than 2 hours a week, but it didn't happen overnight, right? It was a lot of bumping, against the road and kissing frogs and just trying to find the right people, make sure they're in the right seats on the bus. But yeah, I am looking to do that within the next upcoming year. And the great thing about short-term rentals, similar to multifamily syndications, is we have cost segregation studies that we can do as well. We have bonus depreciation that we can leverage as well. So just such an amazing asset. And my favorite thing, Reed, is it's also an asset that you get to enjoy from time to time. So
you get to enjoy the spoils of your hard work. So, but I could also imagine having that conversation, knowing being in the medical world that you know what other medical professionals are going through. It's a very laborious career. Not laborious, I shouldn't say. It's intense in terms of the study, and then demanding in terms of getting into a hospital and you're doing all the work and working 12-hour shifts and just not having any time to think about, well, how am I creating financial freedom for me and my family? And using your story and your experience with that to have other communication and conversations with other medical professionals in your space. I could only assume that would be very, very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to delving into it. It's not something that I've done yet, but it's something that's always, top of mind because I'm always looking for the next great deal. So
awesome stuff. Well, look, at the end of every show, we love to dive into the top 5 investing tips. You ready to get into it?
I'm ready.
Question number 1 is, what's the daily habit you practice to keep on track towards your goals?
Oh, so I have a morning routine, and it probably doesn't look like everyone else's, but I keep to my own morning routine where I task plan, I drink my water, I do my walk, and a little bit of meditation. So keeping a morning routine really sets the pace for my day.
I could only imagine. I'm a morning routine type of guy as well, that if you don't do your morning routine, your whole day's screwed, right?
Totally derailed. Yes.
Totally derailed. I love it. Question number 2 is, who's the most influential person in your career to date? Both, not necessarily just in real estate, just in general.
Oh, in general, I would say it's my mom, to be honest with you. Her work ethic is like no other. Mom and dad are great. She takes care of my dad now, so she's recently retired. And so I admire everything about her.
I'm sure she's just created such a work ethic within yourself to go, become a doctor and then pay off the $500,000, and build an Airbnb business. It's pretty freaking awesome. So well done, Mum, if she's listening in. Question number 3 is what is the most influential tool in your business? Now, when I say tool, it could be a physical tool like a journal or a phone, or it could be a piece of software that you just can't run the business without. What is it?
Oh, that's great. So for me, the tool in my Airbnb short-term rental business is actually my dynamic pricing tool. So I have a tool that I use that helps with pricing to make sure that I'm not missing out on a major concert or occupancy, that's happening right now. So it'll help increase and decrease the pricing. And you don't set it and forget it again, but it really was the big aha moment for me when I turned it on. It's called Price Labs.
Price Labs. Because I could assume you could use it in multi yourself, or you could use it in anything that needs dynamic pricing.
Yeah, dynamic pricing for sure. Yeah, and it's similar to what the hotel revenue managers are using. So it's just been amazing. Yeah, Price Labs. There are other competitors as well, but I love Price Labs.
I'll have to definitely check that out. It's interesting. I've always been really intrigued. We on the multifamily side, we use LRO or CoStar to have that dynamic pricing. It's probably all based on the same fundamental software, but it's it's great to hear. So price, I'm definitely going to check that one out. Thank you so much for that. Question number 4 is, in one sentence, what's been the biggest failure in your career, and what did you learn from that failure?
Ooh, not doing my due diligence on a deal. Yeah. So I had a deal where there was a regulatory restraint and I didn't do all of my due diligence, and we had to sell sooner than expected. We didn't lose a whole lot, but we didn't make as much as we had hoped for. So lessons learned, do your due diligence. I dot my I's and I cross my T's every single time, and it dealt with an HOA. So buyer beware.
Right. So many people, I think, who listen to this show, who've been on this show, myself included, due diligence in the beginning, you trip and fall. You got to get back up on the horse, and lessons learnt, and hopefully you don't lose too much money in those lessons. Yeah. So last question is, where can people reach you to continue the conversation? They want to be in your sphere. Where do they go?
Yeah, I actually have a resource. A question that I get asked all the time, Reed, is where should I invest? What cities should I be looking for? So if your listeners want that resource, if you go to 75gems.com, that's 75gems.com, you'll get access to it. It's an ugly spreadsheet, but everyone loves it. And it'll provide you also my links to all of my social, short-term gems on all of the social media sites.
Love it. Short-term gems. Awesome stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, look, Rachel, I want to thank you so much for jumping on the show today. I just want to reflect some of the things that I took away from today's show. I think obviously your hard work and ethic, your hard work ethic to pay off $500,000 is no mean feat in student debts. It's a cumbersome thing to come out of uni, but also around the idea of wanting to keep up with the Joneses, but also realizing that you're still probably living paycheck to paycheck, and knowing that there's another way. Even though you were a doctor, you had the big house, you had the big cars, you go in the private schools. I think that is so poignant for people who are listening today, building that wealth, that sometimes you have to take a step back before you can take a step forward in terms of living within your own means. I think that's super, super important. I also love what you're talking about in design. The design of a space can make or break, and being in that top 10% by just taking a few seconds to think about the short-term rental and spending a few dollars on matching pieces and not having a hodgepodge of excuse people who have this, but it's my peeve pet. A crappy picture of a beach with a bunch of shells on it, like the stock standard stock photos, which doesn't match any of the decor. Like, just having a little bit of self-awareness around design, and then knowing you might not have a design aesthetic that people like, so go and hire the right people, right? And then creating those little bit of extras, like the blow-up inflatable movie screens, or the whatever it might be, the gas barbecue or heating the pool, to add more revenue to your to your rental. And then finally, I thought you would have an awesome opportunity to co-brand the whole thing together and bring it in an ecosystem. Sounds like that's where you're headed, and I'm excited to see you move on in the future. So did I leave anything out?
No, you got it. That was awesome.
Awesome stuff. Well, look, again, thank you so much, Rachel. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll catch up very, very soon.
Thank you, Reed. I appreciate you having me. Bye for now.
Well, there you have another cracking episode jam-packed with some incredible advice from Rachel on short-term rentals and how she's doing it differently to the average person out there, trying to get into that top 5% of short-term rentals to insulate her from market downturns. If you do want to check her out, go to 75gems.com, and we will have all the links from today's show up on my website at reedgoosens.com. But if you are interested in getting your hands on that spreadsheet, it's 75gems.com. That's 75gems.com. Look, I want to thank you all again for taking some time out of your day to tune in to continue to grow your financial IQ, because that's what we're all about here on this show. The easiest way to give back, if you do like this show, is to give it a 5-star review on iTunes. And we're going to do this all again next week. So remember, be bold, be brave, and go give life a crack.